If there was a company that did historical tours via time travel, what trips would be in high demand? I'm feeling Pompeii would be popular so you could see the before and after effects via time travel. If you are feeling exceptionally adventurous, you could turn the site into a minigame to see how many of your tourists could survive the volcanic eruption on their own. If they die, use time travel and save them, saying that they didn't make it. If they survive, give them a pat on the back and then go on your way to see the Titanic next. That's an even more messed up and expensive escape room. It'll be huge. Going back to the Trojan War. I wanna see if Helen was as hot as they say she is. I always wondered how high those standards were. Big demand would be for short-term time travel like visiting past loved ones. Or playing with your toddler kids again. Italy around 1500. Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo all working, frequently in the same cities. Mostly either Florence for the Medici or in Rome for the Pope. I also would like to meet the Ninja Turtles. A trip to Stephen Hawking's time traveler's party. Nice party wheelchair boy, well I gotta go. Got a meeting with Ramses the Great in 20, bye. World War II seems popular as a lot of people want to try to stop Hitler. Probably momentous times in human history. Imagine if you were on the Titanic and someone said, "I'll be gone tomorrow, this bitch is gonna hit an iceberg the next day, it's gonna fuck you up," even if you don't believe in time travelers. Do you want Command and Conquer? Red alert. Because this is how you get Command and Conquer. Red alert. Pre-eruption Pompeii. Wonder which Redditor tour member got left behind as that masturbating guy. The lost colony of Roanoke. I'm gonna write Croatoan on a tree to fuck with people. People are gonna be hella disappointed when they witness the obvious answer of they just left and lived with the natives, and that's why the natives in that area seem to have a lot of European traits later. Walking with dinosaurs. Don't step off the path. Getting eaten by dinosaurs. Just fucking imagine what the Titanic would be like. A huge line of people queuing up to do the Titanic pose at the front of the ship, and then all the contemporary people asking WTF is going on. Lots of people would probably take a selfie where Rose and Jack fuck. Woodstock would probably be a big hit. Again. Actually, only 1,000 people or so were the original attendees. Those other thousands were just time travelers. A trip to the Roman Empire. We'd be able to meet historical figures such as Augustus, Caesar, Brutus and Biggus Dickus. Hey Julius, looking good, just be careful of your bud Brutus, confused Latin speech. This reminds me of a short story I read long ago on this topic. Wikipedia has a plot synopsis of it, it's definitely worth a read. In the year 2055, time travel has become a practical reality, and the company Time Safari Inc. offers wealthy adventurers the chance to travel back in time to hunt extinct species such as dinosaurs. A hunter named Eccles pays $10,000 to join a hunting party that will travel back 66 million years to the late Cretaceous period, on a guided safari to kill a Tyrannosaurus rex. As the party waits to depart, they discuss the recent presidential elections in which an apparently fascist candidate, Deutscher, has been defeated by his opponent Keith, to the relief of many concerned. When the party arrives in the past, Travis, the hunting guide, and L'Esperance, Travis's assistant, warn Eccles and the two other hunters, Billings and Kramer, about the necessity of minimizing the events they change before they go back, since even the smallest alterations to the distant past could snowball into catastrophic changes in history. Travis explains that the hunters are obliged to stay on a levitating path to avoid disrupting the environment, that any deviation will be punished with hefty fines, and that prior to the hunt, Time Safari scouts had been sent back to select and tag the prey, which would have died within minutes anyway, and whose death has been calculated to have minimal effect on the future. Although Eccles is initially excited about the hunt, when the monstrous Tyrannosaurus approaches, he loses his nerve. Travis tells him to go back to the time machine, but Eccles panics, steps off the path and stumbles into the forest. Eccles hears shots, and on his return, he sees that the two guides have killed the dinosaur, and shortly afterward the falling tree that would have killed the T-Rex has landed on top of it. Realizing that Eccles has fallen off the path, Travis threatens to leave him in the past unless he removes the bullets from the dinosaur's body, as they cannot be left behind. Eccles obeys, but Travis remains furious, threatening on the return trip to shoot him. Upon returning to 2055, Eccles notices subtle changes. English words are now spelled and spoken strangely, people behave differently, and Eccles discovers that Deutsche has won the election instead of Keith. Looking at the mud on his boots, Eccles finds a crushed butterfly, whose death has apparently caused a rift in the timeline that has affected the nature of the alternative present to which the safari has returned. He frantically pleads with Travis to take him back into the past to undo the damage, but Travis had previously explained that the time machine cannot return to any point in time that it has already visited, so as to prevent any paradoxes. Travis raises his gun, and there is a sound of thunder. This must be A Sound of Thunder by Ray Bradbury. He was a fantastic short story writer. Plot twists abound. This was turned into a movie to edit. It was called A Sound of Thunder starring Edward Burns. I'd like to go back and hear Beethoven play. The people who know him today are most aware of his compositions, and he was a brilliant composer, but by some historical accounts, he was a far better player. When he first arrived in Vienna, his reputation preceded him, and the musicians of the day set out to challenge him to a contest to test his skills. One of them said, "We mean to hew him to pieces." Afterwards, the same person said, "Oh, that man has a devil. He improvised airs on a theme I gave him as I have never heard even Mozart play." Mozart himself allegedly said, "Keep your eye on that fellow. One day he'll give the world something to talk about." Seeing him play live versus watching his works would be like the difference between seeing Hendrix play guitar versus seeing an orchestra play his compositions. All those amazing performances are lost to time. I'd like to see one. Edited to fix spelling mistake and thank mysterious stranger for gold. Mosh pit at the Beethoven concert. He was considered one of the greatest improvisers ever. Since the Romantic period, composers have been writing out the cadenzas instead of letting musicians improvise, and gradually improvisation became a lost art in classical music training until recently. It'd be great to actually hear it in the way it was done. Jesus's birth. It would be so high demand that all the hotels in the area would be full. Wait. You might be onto something here. Innkeeper. Sorry, we're all booked for Christmas. Mary and Joseph. Booked for what? Watching the pyramids get built, seeing how Vikings lived and fought, learning more about the Mayans, Aztecs and Native American tribes pre-colonization. A time travel journey truly would be a dream come true. I imagine lots of Anglophiles would want to visit Victorian England and then hate it after 5 minutes. Edit. It makes me very happy that my top comment of all time has many comments about poop and syphilis. Warms my heart, happy crying face. I could see a ball being fun, but for the most part everything pre-1950 is going to be gross, firecly and otherwise, for most people. Oh. Marjorie, look at this eloquent city, back in a more civilized era. Unlike the filth we have today. I simply cannot fathom. General bad odor of surroundings and people strikes, as well as the screams of a person about to be put to death by the guillotine. Yeah, no, let's go back. Demand would rise and fall with movies and TV series, and there would likely be much more historical-based series. I think many of the big battles via history would be popular. They're also a period of unknown in our history. I can see people going back and studying lost civilizations too. Edit. Wow, that's my inbox blown up. Today was a really crappy day for me, just in a low place, so it was a great surprise to read all the comments here, thank you. I'd want to see how civilizations from Mesopotamia looked like at their peaks. Assyria, Babylon, it all fascinates me, and there's so much still left to mystery there. Even more interesting, you wouldn't have to ever build sets for fictional historical shows, you could travel back and actually film them on location. Having Monty Python's Life of Brian set in genuine ancient Rome would be fantastic. Childhood. Why would I want to go to Roman times, or ancient Egypt where I can't speak the language and I'm carrying viruses that will kill everyone? I want to go back to when I was 5 or 6. I want to walk down my old street, I want to bump into my parents as they walk down that street, maybe with me in the pram, pat myself of the head and tell my parents, he's a cute one. I want to roam around for a day as an adult and experience that time in a way I couldn't as a child. I want to spend a day in the familiarity of my childhood through my eyes now and see what it looks like, to recharge the memory as little by little I lose more and more. My 4-year-old daughter asked me last night, what was your favorite toy when you were a kid? Your comment hits home for me as I honestly don't remember much of my childhood. Damn, you're making me wish I was an adult in 2000. Excuse me whilst I head to Roswell, New Mexico. I have a weather balloon I want to see edit. I'm at home with a really bad cold and I fell asleep for an hour and this blew up. Some of the comments have given me a really good laugh whilst I cough myself to death and consider going from Lemsip to Lemsip max strength. Plot twist: you are the weather balloon. The German Tour. A tour through the history of the region. Start with Germanic tribes, move through the Holy Roman Empire, past the creation of modern Germany, and culminating with kicking Hitler in the nuts. * nut. A trip to the Alexandrian Library, before its knowledge was lost. Edit. Apostrophe. Best practice that ancient Egyptian then. Mummy making. Well, you see, when mommy mummy and daddy mummy love each other a lot, they kiss and that's how little mummy's born. Ptolemaic Egypt. From Alexandria to Aswan. I'd personally like to travel with Lewis and Clark to see the US as it was with its untainted wilderness. Time to judge Helen of Troy for myself. Clap some ancient cheeks and start another war. Beatles concerts. That's why there's so little high-quality footage. My pop was at the Brisbane Beatles concert. Said you couldn't hear shit because of the girls' constant screaming. Said he had to tell multiple girls to just shut the fuck up with the screaming. How about seeing their gigs in Hamburg before they were famous? Or the Cavern Club? With our current obsession with serial killers, who knows? Ringside seats to Jack the Ripper, Bundy, the Zodiac Killer, etc. Zodiac Killer. Ted Cruz is still slaying in the Senate. Surprised no one has said the Wild West. The giant robot spider and the Will Smith song. I pass. The life of Moses, Jesus and Muhammad alone would make that company a trillionaire. Personally, I'd like to witness the marriage at Canaan. It's the one example in the Bible of a miracle Jesus performed as purely a party trick. Why the fuck y'all care so much about humans? I'm going to see some goddamn dinosaurs or watch early tetrapods crawl out of the water for the first time in the Devonian. Fucking Egypt. Like. All of it. Cleopatra or Nefertiti. Yesterday. Win the lotto. Studio 54 in its heyday, Beatles at the Cavern Club. Historically, I'd love to hear Einstein's first lecture on general relativity or maybe VE Day Times Square. All eras would be extremely popular at first, until these rich tourists realized how unsanitary life was prior to the 1930s in developed countries. After that, the 1960s will be popular. I don't know about others, but I'm from Finland, so I would like to know what on earth my ancestors were up to before we got taken over by the Swedish kingdom. There's little written history about these places from that time, just urban legends from the Swedes that we were scary people that practiced witchcraft, probably because of pagan shamanism, in the woods, spoke a very strange alien-sounding language and were quick to fight. I'd like to know how we survived in such cold climates living out in the wild and what kind of shenanigans we got up to. Our folklore that survived from that era is strange as hell. We weren't as keen to accept standard civilization as our Scandinavian neighbors, so we stayed in our more natural barbaric tribes for a bit longer. A Queen concert. Yes. Live Aid would be so cool. The theatrical release of every Shrek movie. Now I feel old. Lol. Nice try Ubisoft. I couldn't get Hamilton tickets, Sue. I can imagine how that would turn out. It was nothing like in the Bible. Jesus was no Christ at all, but a Jew, and he ruined it all with socialist propaganda. He should let Jesus in his heart. I am praying for him. Would not recommend. There was no Wi-Fi and the lifeboats were completely crowded. I liked the movie more. Expected WW1 to be black and white, but it turned out to be in full color. Not what I booked. Ah yes, the dumbassery is gonna be legendary. I'd say the Library of Alexandria. Being able to go back and study all of known history before it was destroyed would be very popular with historians. Basically every one of the 7 wonders of the world, when they were in their prime. One that hasn't been said already, and would honestly be a dream for me. Wilt Chamberlain in his prime, Michael Jordan in his prime. Nobody played like these two men. I wish I was alive to see it firsthand. Technically I was alive for MJ, but I was a baby, so it doesn't count. Lol. Edit. For those interested, why Wilt Chamberlain is the GOAT. It speaks on many things, like the argument that players in his league were shorter and not as skilled. His athleticism, and the unfair comparisons of the modern athlete. What he achieved was nothing short of greatness, regardless of the period. He is the greatest of all time, and I will forever say that. Both him and MJ are my GOATs for different reasons, and what I would give to see these legends in person. SMH.